Okay. This is a good lesson. I read it. I was sitting here I was thinking about it because there's a part in here, um, and it very much mirrors what Jesus showed me and how Jesus showed me miracles were performed through him. Um, so it's interesting when I read it because it really does say the exact same thing in this lesson that he once showed me um, when we shared vision of how he fulfilled his function in his ministry. He does that from time to time in situations. It's an interesting thing. I'll be in a situation, and suddenly in the middle of it, there'll be, and I don't know how to explain these things happen. I'll be shown both in, let's say, vision as well as feeling tone. And the feeling tone is the more important part because the feeling tone that comes when Jesus sort of shows me parallel events in our lives, it comes with the understanding of the innocence of everyone involved and the actual, how do I say this, certainty that in the communication, the synchronicity and what I'm experiencing helps me recognize, in fact, that I am fulfilling my function. It's part of the guidance system that occurs when you begin to seek the kingdom first in all your affairs and begin to allow those laws and the vision and the understandings that come to become not merely events in the course of your life, but events that change the way you relate to both yourself in your own thinking and experience, your brothers in your experiences with them, and with the world and the universe at large. Lesson 350, miracles mirror God's eternal love. Remember it way back in the beginning in the miracles principles, he talks about all miracles reflect the love of God, and that is beyond any human evaluation. Okay? Miracles mirror God's eternal love. To offer them is to remember him, and through his memory to save the world. Yes. And remember, miracles are a way of shortening the time. Shortening the time within which we took within a larger time sequence to save the world. For the world to come to the final, let's go, for the dream to come to its final conclusion so as to never have been dreamt before. What we forgive becomes a part of us as we perceive ourselves. Okay? This is where you begin to sense that traditional definitions of forgiveness aren't really, how should I say it, aren't really admissible understanding-wise if you want to understand what Jesus is conveying in A Course in Miracles. Even though the word is the same, the understanding behind the word, that when we hear the word, when we see the symbol that forms, that forms the word forgiveness, we remember something in us that we associate with what forgiveness is. Okay? What Jesus is training our mind to associate forgiveness with God's love. Because every time we associate something with God's love and recognize it within the love of God, we recognize it as being already part of us. And this is the way Jesus performed his miracles. The Son of God incorporates all things within himself as God created us, you and I, as the Son of God. All things have incorporated us. we'd have to also include, just for a second, there is the idea that there's the power to dream a separate dream. And in that dream up states of mind and conditions that are unlike reality. But the power that's empowering the dream is still the power of the mind of Christ asleep in the kingdom and thinking the dream is his reality. Okay? Now, so when Jesus would come into a situation, when Jesus showed me, when he would bless something, he would take it into himself. He would bless it by including it into what he was. And because his mind was stayed in eternity and stayed in the storehouse, everything he blessed and incorporated into himself was taken up into the storehouse, where it's multiplied tenfold, 100-fold, to the necessity of the utilization in the plan for forgiveness here in space and time, the plan for atonement here in space and time. So that because he was already stayed in eternity, and he had no more time left in his sojourn, the immediacy of his incorporation of that which he blessed immediately went into the storehouse, and then was immediately available to him here as a way of meeting the needs of those who began to trust him to fulfill his function by demonstrating them here the trustworthy nature of him as their Savior, and therefore them in their ability to be saved and be like him. Because as above, so below. So as his mind was steeped in eternity, his below down here was demonstrating and making manifest eternity and infinity through the utilization and multiplication of symbols that Old Testament people understood. Loaves and fishes were being multiplied. Your memory depends on his forgiveness. In other words, forgiveness removes the blockages that we've put in the way between the direct memory and communication with our reality here within space and time. Okay? So his memory depends on our ability to learn forgiveness. The salvation of the world and the ending of the dream depends on our ability to learn forgiveness and utilize it. And because it is from God, and we cannot not already know, because it's already within us, we learn to remove the obstacles to recognizing what we are as forgiven. Because God is only love, and therefore so am I. So are you and I, actually. Okay? And as he says in the book, the only way to God is through forgiveness. Is through healing your mind of the idea that there was, in fact, a time and a space when you could be separate from him. What he is unaffected by my thoughts, but what he looks upon is their direct result. Therefore, my Father, I would turn to you. Only your memory will set me free, and only my forgiveness teaches me to let your memory return to me and give it to the world in thankfulness. I want you to understand, really read these lines when you do it slowly, so you can get a sense of the interweaving of the experience of receiving to give, giving to receive, and the greater flow that comes through the unification, through the action of the creation of the Son by the Father, and what that demonstrates, and what that allows the Father to be to the Son, and the Son to be to the Father. There's a greater manifestation, okay, in their unification, because the Father created the Son to be his extension. The Son accepts his creation as the extension. The Son assures that the Father's creation was extended and is extending. And together in that union, they continue the activity of creation. And that's what Jesus is setting up here. When you go beyond just the conceptual need and recognize the activity of your mind in eternity as infinitely capable of being who God created you to be, including here when you turn to God to ask Him what you are. And as you learn of it, you utilize those principles here rather than identifying with the ego. Only your memory will set me free. That's true, because it is the memory. Love and freedom are one and the same. And only my forgiveness teaches me to let your memory return to me. This is the action. Only your memory will set me free. Only my forgiveness teaches me to let your memory return. And it gives to the world its thankfulness. There's the result and the manifestation of the greater joining that takes place with the Father and Son, and in that creation, and in here, forgiveness and return of the memory of the Father to the Son. So as the Son, in all of its parts, can remember together and enjoy a totality of reunion, and bring about an end through forgiveness. As we gather miracles from Him, we will indeed be grateful. Of course we will. Because miracles solve problems once and for all. And problems are just trials that come back to us because we remember everything you've thought about the world of space and time is entirely false, because the world of space and time is the means that you utilize to return to the Father. So the trials that get repeated in space and time are merely ones that you have yet to pass, and the passing of them is freeing yourself from the necessity for them ever having been bothering you in the first place. So as we gather miracles, and each one of those passing of the trials occurs miraculously, as we gather miracles, we would indeed be grateful because we recognize that we are advancing as we go back, freeing ourselves from the past, experiencing the freedom now, and the nature of freedom is the desiring of the share, because we're one with our brothers at the level of soul, wherein which freedom is whole and perfect and shared, and that's what we're restoring to our memory, that recognition, and we're restoring it to our memory here through utilization of vision, and then utilizing the activity of vision as a way of looking upon all things, so as to increase the thought system that represents miracle-mindedness and withdraw the support that the separate Son of God was previously giving the egoic thought system in the world. Because if you withdraw that support, it automatically will go to the miraculous nature of the transformation of your mind and your brother's mind, and the salvation of the world and the healing of your mind, the necessity to dream. So we're getting close to New Year's, and we'll knock this workbook out. And then I think there's a few ideas developing as to how to proceed with this. And in the next couple of days, there'll be some. Somebody's going to let you know some of the things that will be happening, and a way in which I'll be spreading the message and recording more talks, hopefully interactive communications with some of you who would like to participate in helping me present this in a way where people can begin to experientially join in, because they're recognizing themselves in us. And in that recognition, the end of separation comes, and that is the salvation of you, your brother, and the world.